Dr. Shabir, welcome to Let the Quran Speak.
Pleasure to be on.
We are starting a new series called Questions About the Quran. And the first question, Dr. Shabir, is what does the word Quran mean?
Yeah, so the word Quran, as you pronounce it rightly, has, the etymology of it has been discussed by Muslim scholars, and there is no agreement on how this word came about. You see, a lot of things are like this sometimes in our languages. We have a word that is commonly used, we try to trace the etymology back, and we can't really be sure how the word came to be as it is. So the Arab grammarians are suggesting a variety of solutions to this. So one is that the word Quran, it can come from the verb qara'a in Arabic, which means to read. And we know that the verbal noun from that is qira'a, which means a recitation. But some say that the word Quran is of the same meaning. It's the verbal noun, which means the act of reading. So that the Quran itself is a reading. It is something that is, sometimes we speak about the act of reading, but the thing itself that we read, we call that a reading. So what is the reading for today? Whether it's in a church service or in some other circumstance, we call the thing itself a reading, which in Arabic would be makru. The thing that is read. But Quran can also refer to that. Some others trace it to a Syriac origin. They say that in Syriac, Qiryana means a lectionary, which would also be like a reading in a liturgical setting. So that is another way in which people have tried to analyze this. Mostly non-Muslims, like Arthur Jeffrey, in his book, The Syriac or Foreign Vocabulary of the Quran, he has traced many Quranic terms to Syriac origins, which is not far-fetched because the Arabs and those who spoke Syriac, intermingled, and there was a lot of mutual influence among these societies.
I like the idea of reading because it suggests that, you've got to pick it up and read it, rather than book, right? Book
Exactly.
is like an item that, a solid item that that's there, an object. But reading suggests that, you need to be active.
Yes,
some
yes.
way.
And of course, in the time of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, as we know from Islamic tradition, the Quran wasn't available to everyone in the form of a book. It wasn't yet a printed book, definitely. And even as a handwritten manuscript, it wasn't collated into a book. There were pages that are sheets that people could carry and read. And most of it was, oral transmission. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, proclaiming it in public. But he wasn't just simply proclaiming it. This is something that was read in the public prayers, so that it was a reading right from the very inception. And then other people, picked that up and started to read it as well. So it was a reading. And that's how Muslims know it.
Where did the term come from, Dr. Shabir? Is it that God referred to the Quran as the Quran? In the Quran?
Yes. And that's a curious thing about the Quran, because generally a book does not refer to its own title. But the Quran actually refers to itself as a Quran, as a reading. And it refers to itself also as an Arabic Quran, Quran and Arabian. And Daniel Madigan has written a book about this called The Self-Referentiality of the Quran. So the Quran is always referring to itself. It's saying, this Quran, we have revealed this Quran, and so on. And the Quran, of course, calls itself by a variety of other names as well, or other terms of reference. The Quran often refers to itself as the Kitab, Al-Kitab. Though the term Al-Kitab can sometimes have a broader scope than just a reference to the Quran. It could be referring to a heavenly sort of origin from which all of the religious scriptures spring, including the Torah of Moses, the Psalms of David, and the Gospel of Jesus. But the Quran also seems to refer to itself as the Quran. It refers to itself also as dhikr, which means the reminder. So the Quran says this is a dhikrun mubarak, this is a blessed reminder. And because that's what the Quran is supposed to do to us, it reminds us. And the flip side of that is that we are to remember the Quran even to the extent that Muslims took it seriously and started to memorize the very words of the Quran, so that to this day, some 1400 years later, we have, like in Muslim schools, you can have like a 10-year-old child having memorized the entire Quran.
Thank you for that, Dr. Shabir. Thank you for sharing those little tidbits with us.
You're welcome.
If you enjoyed this video, click like and subscribe. And please donate to support our work at QuranSpeaks.com.